Nova Scotia is a Canadian province located in Canada's Maritimes. The region was initially occupied by Mi'kmaq. During the first 150 years of European settlement, the colony was primarily made up of Catholic Acadians, Maliseet and Mi'kmaq. During the latter 75 years of this time period, there were 6 colonial wars that took place in Nova Scotia. After agreeing to several peace treaties, this long period of warfare ended with the burial of the hatchet ceremony between the British and the Mi'kmaq, and 2 years later when the British defeated the French in North America. During these wars, Acadians, Mi'kmaq and Maliseet from the region fought to protect the border of Acadia from New England. They fought the war on 2 fronts: the southern border of Acadia, which New France defined as the Kennebec River in southern Maine. The other front was in Nova Scotia and involved preventing New Englanders from taking the capital of Acadia, Port Royal, establishing themselves at Canso. During the French and Indian War, Halifax was established as the British headquarters of the North American station. As a result, Nova Scotia was active throughout the American Revolution and the War of 1812. During the Victorian era, Nova Scotians also played prominent roles in the Crimean War and the Indian Mutiny. The province also participated in the Northwest Rebellion and the Second Boer War. During the 20th century, the province produced numerous heroes who fought in World War I and World War II. There was a small number of Nova Scotians who also participated in the Spanish Civil War, the Korean War and the war in Afghanistan. 17th century, Port Royal established the first European settlement in Nova Scotia was established in 1605. The French, led by Pierre Duguay, Sieur de Mons, established the first capital for the colony Acadia at Port Royal, Nova Scotia. Other than a few trading posts around the province, for the next 75 years, Port Royal was virtually the only European settlement in Nova Scotia. Port Royal remained the capital of Acadia and later Nova Scotia for almost 150 years, prior to the founding of Halifax in 1749. Approximately 75 years after Port Royal was founded, Acadians migrated from the capital and established what would become the other major Acadian settlements before the expulsion of the Acadians: Grand Pre-Acute, Chignecto, Cobequid and Pisiguit. The English made 6 attempts to conquer the capital of Acadia, which they finally did in the Siege of Port Royal in 1710. Over the following 50 years, the French and their allies made 6 unsuccessful military attempts to regain the capital. Scottish and French conflict. From 1629 to 1632, Nova Scotia briefly became a Scottish colony. Sir William Alexander of Menstrie Castle, Scotland, claimed mainland Nova Scotia and settled at Port Royal, while Ochiltree claimed Isle Royal and settled at Baleine, Nova Scotia. There were 3 battles between the Scottish and the French: the Raid on St. John, the Siege of Baleine as well as Siege of Cap d'Assable. Nova Scotia was returned to France via the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. The French quickly defeated the Scottish at Baleine and established settlements on Isle Royal at present-day Englishtown and St. Peters. These 2 settlements remained the only settlements on the island until they were abandoned by Nicolas Denis in 1659. Isle Royal then remained vacant for more than 50 years until the communities were re-established when Louisbourg was established in 1713. Acadian Civil War. Acadia was plunged into what some historians have described as a civil war between 1640 and 1645. The war was between Port Royal, where Governor of Acadia Charles de Menou-d'Aulnay de Charnisy was stationed, and present-day St. John, New Brunswick, where Governor of Acadia Charles de Saint-Étienne de la Tour was stationed. In the war, there were 4 major battles. La Tour attacked Olney at Port Royal in 1640. In response to the attack, Olney sailed out of Port Royal to establish a 5-month blockade of La Tour's fort at St. John, which La Tour eventually defeated. La Tour attacked Olney again at Port Royal in 1643. Olney and Port Royal ultimately won the war against La Tour with the 1645 siege of St. John. After Olney died, La Tour re-established himself in Acadia. In 1674, the Dutch briefly conquered Acadia, renaming the colony New Holland. King Philip's War. During King Philip's War, the governor was absent from Acadia and Jean-Vincent de Bardi de Saint-Castin was established at the capital of Acadia, Pentagouet. Further, he worked with the Abenaki of Acadia to raid British settlements migrating over the border of Acadia. British retaliation included attacking deep into Acadia in the Battle off Port La Tour. Wabanaki Confederacy. In response to King Philip's War in New England, the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet people from this region joined the Wabanaki Confederacy to form a political and military alliance with New France. The Mi'kmaq and Maliseet were very significant military allies to New France through 6 wars. King William's War. During King William's War, the Mi'kmaq, Acadians and Maliseet participated in defending Acadia at its border with New England, which New France defined as the Kennebec River in southern Maine. Toward this end, the Maliseet from the headquarters at Meductic on the St. John River joined the New France expedition against present-day Bristol, Maine, Salmon Falls and present-day Portland, Maine. In response, the New Englanders retaliated by attacking Port Royal and present-day Guysborough. In 1694, the Maliseet participated in the raid on Oyster River at present-day Durham, New Hampshire. 2 years later, New France, led by Pierre Le Moyne d'Iberville, returned and fought a naval battle in the Bay of Fundy before moving on to raid Bristol, Maine again. In retaliation, the New Englanders, led by Benjamin Church, engaged in a raid on Chignecto and the siege of the capital of Acadia at Fort Nashwauk. After the siege of Pemaquid, d'Iberville led a force of 124 Canadians, Acadians, Mi'kmaq and Abenakis in the Avalon Peninsula campaign. They destroyed almost every English settlement in Newfoundland. Over 100 English were killed, many times that number captured, and almost 500 deported to England or France. At the end of the war, England returned the territory to France in the Treaty of Ryswick and the borders of Acadia remained the same.